feel like if they...
Can you feel it? The beckoning call of the wild. The kindling in your spirit when you hear the untamed howls of the wilderness. The immolation in your blood as the thrill of the hunt pours over you. Smoldering remains of your enemies lay in waste behind as you conquer and bond with beasts of unwavering loyalty and ferocity. And only whispers dare call your name, as all fear the swift death that falls from your aim, for you are the hunter.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the Cloak and Quiver show. My name is Solar Flare. You can call me Solar, and first order of business is a thank you. One, thank you all so much for listening to the very first episode of the show. This is history in the making right here. And a huge, tremendous thank you to Coltrane. You may have recognized Coltrane's voice from the intro. He's one of the hosts over at the Convert to Raid podcast. For all of your raiding needs, go over to Convert to Raid right now and check them out. And a huge thank you to you guys again. So again, my name is Solar. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about myself. I have been playing World of Warcraft for 6 years, and for those 6 years, my hunter has been my main. There was a stretch of time for about a month where I was on a warlock, but we choose not to talk about that, especially for this show. And for a time, I guess my big debut into the World of Warcraft community, I co-hosted the Convert to Raid show with Pat Crane and Coltrane for about 2 years. I think it was about 2 years. And I learned so much from them, and it was a great experience. And here I am back again and talking about hunters this time. So just maybe a little bit more information about me and kind of what we want to do with the show, and then we'll get on to a few things I want to talk about. We got some news and some mail this week, which was great. Hunter-related news, too, believe it or not. We have a few things to discuss. And so just a bit more information on me. I am in a 25-man heroic raiding guild on Ner'zhul. The guild I'm in is Last Word. We finished US 46 25-man, killing heroic Garrosh this January. So far this tier, I've managed to net quite a few top 10, 25, and 50 ranks for this tier. And that's just kind of let you guys know that the information and the knowledge and the resources shared here aren't just from some Joe Schmo on the internet spouting off random information into a microphone. And, you know, we know what we're talking about here, and we're going to have a great time doing it. So, but enough about that, and let's talk about the goals and what I kind of want to do with this show. So now you guys know a little bit more about me, and let's talk a little bit more about the show. My goal here is to really kind of create a community of hunters, and there already is a fantastic one out there, but with the recent loss of the Hunting Party podcast kind of being retired into the Hall of Fame, I figured it was a good time to kind of continue, at least with some momentum going into Warlords of Draenor, the hunter community, and I thought this was the best, kind of way to offer that up, is just a place for discussion to occur and, just build a place for the hunter community to share their thoughts and ideas and knowledge on all sorts of topics, including news and questions. And I just think it's going to be really fun. And I have a lot of excitement for this and a lot of passion. So I hope you guys enjoy me on this ride, and we'll see what we can do. That's all I can say for now. This is episode 1, so buckle up, right? So with kind of the introduction out of the way, let's bust right into it. We got some news this week, and fresh off the press from today, Hydra pets will be tameable in Warlords of Draenor, believe it or not. Pretty awesome, actually. I think this is a really neat addition. It's something the hunter community has always kind of wanted, and for a time was actually possible. I don't know if you guys recall in early Cataclysm that Ghost Hydra being able to be tamed. The game thought it was a crocolisk, right? Like that was the ID that it had. So you could tame it, and some people were running around with Hydras for a while. But that is now fixed, but it's being reintroduced in Warlords of Draenor. And what I'm kind of excited for, actually, is to be able to, and I don't know if you guys maybe have thought of this already or not, but go back into Blackwing Lair, or Descent, the level 85 version, and tame Chimeron. I don't know if it's going to be possible. You might have to tweak some details and some strategy on that, but being able to tame Chimeron, how neat would that be? That giant mutated Hydra boss from Blackwing Lair. Descent, darn it. Still in news, but not entirely fresh off the press this time, is the talent tree revamp for Warlords of Draenor has changed for the hunters. Now, this is actually different than what it was at BlizzCon. About a few weeks back, MMO Champion released a video from a showcasing of WoD, and the hunter talents were changed. There was a few changes, and they're noteworthy too. The first one being Lynx Rush is gone from the talent tree entirely, and believe it or not, it's replaced with Stampede. Now, I don't really know how I feel about this. So now this talent contains Blink Strikes, Murder of Crows, and Stampede. Very interesting changes. We're going to have to see the development on that. I have no idea why they made our DPS cooldown a talent. With that tree having a very interesting choice of talents, we're gonna have to see what the Sims bring out on that one, because right now it is kind of eyebrow raising. But another one worth mentioning is With or Without You. And I don't know if you guys caught wind of this, but this was at the BlizzCon showcasing, where you could dismiss your pet completely as survival or marksman and gain a passive 30% damage increase. But if you were with BM, the with part of the talent increased your pet's ability scope, so it could use every single ability from every single pet tree. So like even if it was ferocity spec, it could still use the last stand that only a tank spec pet could use. So it was actually a very cool, very neat talent, one that I personally was looking forward to the most, because being able to dismiss your pet on certain raid fights is tremendous, because sometimes your pets can really be a burden. So With or Without You being removed and being replaced with one called Versatility. Now this does pretty much the same thing as the with part on the With or Without You. So now your pet with this talent gains all of the abilities again, and an additional 70% increased damage done. So kind of almost the opposite of With or Without You Versatility is. And like I said, I am kind of disappointed to see that dismissal gone, because there are just some fights where I really wish I did not have to rely on my pet as a damage source, because it's so unreliable. Siegecraft or Blackfuse being a great example with the belts. There was also a few last tier like Iron Khan and Darumu, and the list goes on, but that's a discussion for another day. So the Hunter talent tree is shaping up quite interestingly coming into Warlords. Can't say I'm really too excited to see Stampede in the talent tree. I really preferred that as just one of our DPS cooldowns, kind of comparable to Rapid Fire, a nice flavor. It could have gone in there to reduce button bloat, perhaps, but the only argument I have against that is that it's a 5-minute cooldown, currently around 3 if you have the Assurance of Consequence trinket from Shaw, but still, you're not hitting Stampede like every 10 seconds or something like that. It's not, or 30 or 45 or what have you. It's not like a button bloat ability, I feel. So why it's in the talent tree, I'm not too certain, but we'll just have to see, like I said, as we get closer to release, how our talent tree shapes up. Changes already, so we'll stay tuned on that. Still, though, unfortunately, no word on quivers. One of the devs at a BlizzCon panel was like, yo, why did no one ask about quivers? And everyone was like, what? Scratching their head, but they never released any information, so I don't know if that was kind of just like a little bit of a troll or what, but unfortunately we don't have any news on quivers or ammo belts or any of that, so a bit of a dry spell in kind of content updates for Warlords of Draenor, but I'm sure we'll get there with the beta coming out and soon TM, so we'll see what happens, and hopefully we get to see quivers, because I've always really liked the cosmetic aspect of a hunter, almost even more of a quote-unquote kind of ranger, with the hood and the quiver and the green tights. Maybe not so much the green tights, but can you kind of picture that though, like a foresty kind of ranger? I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I've always really enjoyed that kind of how would you even word that? Style, the kind of style that the Ranger presents. If you go to the World of Warcraft game guide on the Battle.net website, and you go to Hunter and you click on that, you just see all these really like kind of picturesque, hunters in lightly armored kind of hoods and things like that. But you never see that reflected in any of our tiers, which always really baffled me. You get like tiers like strapping Murlocs on my head, man, but you don't ever see. You don't ever get to see kind of the more woodsy aspect, which I really wish they would give us at least one tier of. That'd be my favorite tier. But kind of shifting focus here, but still very noteworthy in the news. Wowhead just released a new set of class guides, and they're actually, at least for the hunter, quite well done. So you go to Wowhead, and one of the first things on the homepage is their class guides, and you can look at kind of all sorts of pieces of information for each class. They even have like DPS and rotation guides and stuff like that, and their angle was kind of like bite-sized information, not so much in depth that it's like information overload, but enough to kind of at least comprehend what's going on. And I believe this was written by Bendak, who is the current Scattered Shots columnist on WoW Insider as well. Very concise, and what I really enjoyed about this guide, which I feel like a lot of hunters seem to kind of miss, especially when they're starting new or always looking to improve. And I'm going to read this verbatim just because of how important it is. Never allow yourself to become focus capped. And this is a DPS loss. Okay, so go figure. This is the real kicker. At the same time, you don't want to overspend focus to the point where you cannot cast your spec's signature shot ability when it finishes cooldown. Now, it doesn't matter what spec you're playing. If you can't hit explosive shot, if you can't hit kill command, if you can't hit chimera shot because you do not have the focus for it, we're talking tremendous amounts of damage lost here. You add that up over the course of the fight, millions of damage lost because you delayed a shot. So let's put this into example. I think this is a good introductory lesson, perhaps for just anybody. It's always good to know this. Even I can improve on this sometimes. So say you've got 30 focus and kill command's about to come up, but you're 10 focus short, so you cast a Cobra. That Cobra shot's a 1.5 second cast time. Well, that's 1.5 seconds you've had to delay that kill command. You do that over the course of a fight that lasts 7 minutes. Say you do that like 15, 16 times just on accident, and you're like, oh, whatever, it's only a second and a half. That adds up. That now became, some math later, 5 or 6 kill commands you missed because of that, and that adds up. So say a kill command does anywhere from, 200 to 600k damage 5 times. So that's about 1 million damage that you just missed right there, and just on accident, purely just because you were focused starving yourself. And I think that's something that's really important. I catch myself doing it from time to time where I go, oh crud, I accidentally hit a Cobra shot because I was 10 focus under or whatever. I just wasted a second and a half. But it's still a second and a half wasted. And so if you're always looking to kind of get that extra edge, you can always really focus on keeping your focus in check. So I think that's a good little discussion topic, something to keep in mind the next time you're on your hunter rating or you're doing a 5-man, you can practice it or what have you, LFR even. Be aware of that. Signature shot prioritization, I think, is the number one thing that hunters can always work on. So that about does it for our news, at least for this week. We're going to get into some questions. Earlier this week, I had asked on the Twitter account for the show if anyone had any questions or discussion topics they wanted to present on the show. And we got quite a few, so I'm already excited to see that people are interested in doing some of that hunter talk, and we'll get right into it. So the first one is from Tiberius Rex, and he goes, I've played with all 3 specs on my hunter, less so with Beast Mastery than the other 2, but enjoyed the marksman spec. From reading various sites, Survival and Beast Mastery seem to be the rating spec combo with best DPS and general survivability. But how far off is Marksman in your experience, especially in the item level 500 to 550 range, from being just as competitive as the other 2? Are there Siege of Orgrimmar boss fights where clearly BM or Survival is best to use? So thank you, Tiberius, for your question. Let's kind of break this down into a few components here, because there are a few things working in this question. So the first one is how far off is Marksman from your experience, especially in the 500 to 550 range, from being just as competitive as Survival and Beast Mastery. So Marksman is the least performing of the 3 specs right now, but let's just talk about single target right now. So say we zoned into Siege and Iron Juggernaut is staring us down, that giant mechanical scorpion, the 6th boss in Siege. And so we have a marksman hunter, a survival hunter, and a BM hunter, and they all start to hit the boss, and the fight finishes, and everyone looks at the damage meter. You're going to see the BM hunter on top, followed by the survival hunter, the survival hunter, followed by the marksman hunter. But the disparity between the two, if they're all in the same gear, personally, the exact same setup, hitting all their buttons like a robot, the marksman hunter wouldn't be that far off from the other 2. It'd actually be quite close. The disparity between the 3 specs on single target is rather minimal. I don't feel like it's a make or break DPS situation on single target, but when it comes to AoE or multiple targets, this is where Marksman really starts to fall off. Marksman just does not have a respectable AoE compared to the other 2 specs. So in any situation where we see 2 or more enemies, BM is going to be top dog by rolling Beast Cleave with near 100% uptime, by using multi-shot that activates your pet's Beast Cleave. That's going to beat out Survival Serpent Spread in 99% of all situations. When you have things like kind of target swapping, I would say that you kind of see in Immersius or like Spoils of Pandaria, Those are fights where survival usually inks out a little bit more. I prefer survival and spoils over BM, just the way that we do the fight. The targets are always moving and then swapping to sparks, and I just like the damage that I can deal as a hunter and not having to rely so much on my pet running from target to target to target. I like to be kind of more of a turret and use my damage over my pets. But then we see fights like Thok the Bloodthirsty, the giant dinosaur, our good friend Thok, where when he is in his kite phase, where he has those fixates, there becomes a point where your pet actually cannot keep up with the speed that Thok is running, and you see BM fall behind here because your pet is not connecting with the boss. So here, survival is also a very good, spec to choose on this fight. So there's a couple variables in play here when you're choosing your specs for certain encounters, but generally speaking, BM is top dog in Siege, and like I said, 2 or plus targets, it's going to be your king. Survival followed by a close second, very good for single target, very good for AoE, but still not number one. And then Marksman, who just does not have good AoE. It's still okay, right? Like if you're in a normal raid team, you can probably play Marks for the entire thing and you'd be okay. But if you're looking for cutting edge, you're not going to find it in Marksman, unfortunately. But so yeah, thank you so much for your question. That was a good discussion. Okay, next question coming from @OneFingers saying, I miss CC. That means by default, I miss BC Heroics, especially Shattered Halls. Anyone else? Now, the reason I bring this question to light is because I am sorry to say @OneFingers that if you miss CC, you're going to continue to miss CC. In Warlords of Draenor, we are losing our scatter shot, which is a sad day, if you ask me, because this really changes the way Hunter's CC works. So, traps in Warlords of Draenor are going to arm instantly. But oddly enough, we don't really have any way to set up trapping something. Now, if you're in a dungeon, the mobs and the monsters are all stationary, so generally you don't need to scatter shot or anything like that. But if something's on the move, or even in PvP largely, scatter is the way you set up your trapping. So this way it makes traps really hard. I mean, you have to have some serious precision to land this thing if it's not stationary. Which kind of brings in the question, is concussive shot going to come out of the woodworks a bit more often? Is that going to be kind of a way to lead them into it? Granted, it's certainly not a guaranteed, like a scatter is, but would it at least slow them down? And this is incredibly unfortunate with people that have high latency, because that there is still travel time with this trap, and we're talking anything with a moving target, a high latency plus something that's such a precision skill shot like this is going to be a nightmare. I mean, I can't imagine that being easy at all. So, kind of dark days for CC for Hunters. We still have our Wyvern Sting, and we still have our Binding Shot and Intimidation, which I think are strong in certain situations. But I'm going to miss Scatter for the interrupt. I'm going to miss it for setting up a trap. So it'll be interesting to see what we're going to kind of compensate with. I mean, I could kind of see on a moving target laying down the Binding and then going into the freezing trap, but I just feel like that's kind of overkill almost, that 5 second stun into that trap. But we may have to find new ways to do this. We may be forced into taking Binding Shot if we're ready to set up trapping. That may be just the go-to now. So it'll be interesting to see how our CC changes in Warlords, what reigns the same, what doesn't, and what we're going to have to kind of adjust in the meantime. So our last question for today's show comes from @mboots saying, are you excited about the new Hydra pet? What other pets do you want or new challenges? Now, we did discuss the Hydra earlier on this show, but I just want to say about the other new pets do I want that Blizzard has done a really good job at keeping hunters, at least in my opinion, very well satisfied with the amount of pets that we can tame, the skins, the colors, all the species. I mean, it is a truly incredible list. And I'm happy for that. But if there's one thing I want to see a bit more of in the pet department, I guess, is probably just a few families need to be touched up on, like the chimeras. I think there's only 4 or 5 species available. And that's just a small thing. Like I said a second ago, I think they've done a really good job. But new skins, it's always nice to see new art in the game, because generally the art is fantastic. I know art is subjective, of course, but I'm usually pretty pleased with the pets that come out. Just recently with the arcane worms, I thought those had a terrible, terrible animation. Those arcane worms did, but nonetheless, they're new. It's exciting. I appreciate that. But the new challenges, I'd like to talk about that. She says, what other pets do you want or new challenges? And I think this challenges part really opens up a huge door for potential. And I think there's a lot of things you can do with this. You can even incorporate these challenges into pets, which Blizzard has done as early as, even the Firelands tier with all those spiders on the Molten Front, including ultimately Death to Lack, that purple fiery spider, which I think has a fantastic model. I love that glow. The purple is really nice. And she was a challenge to tame. You had to do some crazy kiting, and there was all sorts of really neat tricks you could do with all these hunter pets. And every time they come out with kind of a new wave of hunter-specific pets, there are challenges attached with them, and I think that's great. I mean, I know hunters who just made a hunter specifically for tackling those pet challenges because that's what they liked about the idea behind it. So I really think that there's a lot of room Blizzard has here to continue with that, but not only open that up and make even new challenges. Specifically, or what I'm kind of more referring to with class-specific quests, like the Warlocks had this expansion, and Hunters had in vanilla with Lok Dalar and Roke Dalar, the staff and bow combo that we had for a class quest, and I think those are fantastic things, and that's one thing that I truly feel that I missed out on was the accomplishment that came with knowing that you did kind of that ultimate challenge for your class, and you have been rewarded for it. And, me not playing in vanilla, I feel like I would really just appreciate something like that coming in Warlords. And I know they said they were going to be very specific with the way that they did these. But I truly hope that we get to see one. I mean, I'm not a game designer or anything, so I can't think of some ultimate, example right here. But, as hunters, we have so much utility, and we have such a huge toolkit that I know that if they did come up with something, it would be truly epic just because, of all the things that I'm positive that they would incorporate into the challenge. Like with the Warlock Screen Fire, I mean, you were using things like Enslaved Demon and all sorts of stuff that you never get to use on a daily basis. And I really feel like if they did something like that for hunters, it would be something to go down in the books. I mean, just try and imagine something crazy here. Do it with me. So say there's some epic boss fight that we have to do, and waves of ads come out, and we misdirect them to some decoy dummy that's truly a trap that we laid down that blew up the ads because we MD'd it to the decoy dummy trap, and some giant beast comes out, and we have to keep scare beast up on it. Can you see already how amazing I think a hunter class quest would be? Come on, Blizzard, I know you're listening out there somewhere. Point of this episode, we can get something working here. But, class quests, I had so much fun doing the Warlock one, and I can't even imagine how much fun I would have doing the Hunter one. So, try not to get too excited about it because it's something that, you can really lust for, but I don't know how soon that reality is. So, but that's going to conclude our very first Cloak and Quiver show. We did some news, we did some mail, did a little discussion. I liked it. I had a lot of fun. So I think for next episode, we might do a bit more of kind of a detailed spec discussion. Perhaps we'll choose a spec and kind of break it down, talk about the rotation, the strengths, the weaknesses. We kind of did a little bit of that today, but we'll go a bit more in-depth. I mean, we're not talking beating you down with theory crafting and numbers, but just, you can get more comfortable with the hunter specs this way, and I think that's great. So we'll do that next episode. We'll also take some more listener questions as well as topics. I think that's a good one. You guys can send in discussion topics, and we'll just discuss whatever's on the hunting community's mind. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So, again, I just want to thank you all so much for coming out and listening to the very first episode. I know it was a little short this week. Plan for 30 to 45 minute episodes in general, though. This was the first episode, kind of, oiling up the cogs a little bit, getting comfortable, getting ready, and just having a good time. So I do apologize for the length. I didn't mean it to run under 30 minutes, but next time plan for 30 or 45 roughly. I think those are good bite-sized weekly bits. And I'd love to hear from you guys if you have any feedback about our very first episode, perhaps a segment or a little bit of an idea perhaps that you want to incorporate, and you say, hey, this might be a good idea, check this out. I would love to hear it. Please email the show at cloakandquiver@gmail.com. I'd love to hear feedback, comments, ideas, suggestions, hate mail. All goes to cloakandquiver@gmail.com. If you want to follow the show on Twitter for updates, that's at Cloak and Quiver. Very easy. And if you want to follow me for whatever the heck else, I'm at _SolarFlare. We're probably going to have the show uploaded to iTunes, Stitcher, and YouTube. I think those are going to be the big three starting off. I'm open to other social media that you guys want to perhaps have the feed in. But right now it's going to be iTunes, Stitcher, and YouTube. So stay posted for that. Pick your social media of choice. And in closing, I just want to say thank you all so much again for watching, and I will see you next week.